Hello. Welcome to the Designing for Dissemination, Implementation, and Sustainability, or D4DI&S training. My name is Jen. Today I'll go through Module 1, Multi-Level Partner Engagement. Along with this video, there is a corresponding playbook. Please refer to it as it provides additional information and resources for you to use as you move through this learning hub and learn strategies to design your intervention for dissemination, implementation, and sustainability. The objective for this module is to learn about multi-level partner engagement and how to use it to enhance and promote your intervention. Some of you may be familiar with implementation science. So, what does D4DI&S have to do with implementation science? Well, implementation science involves many methods, theories, models, frameworks, and strategies that you can choose from to combine or use independently of one another to advance the implementation of new research or evidence-based interventions into clinical practice. The overarching goal of implementation science is to improve health outcomes and processes through applying new research methods into the real world. The D4DI&S Implementation Strategy Bundle is a combination of implementation strategies that help to speed the uptake of research into real-world practice. Activities we will review over the next 4 modules are implementation science strategies that can be used either together or independently to enhance the likelihood that your intervention will be implemented, sustained, and disseminated successfully. Now let's dive into what the D4DI&S Implementation Strategy Bundle is. The multi-component D4DI&S Implementation Strategy Bundle consists of the following. Number 1. Multi-level partner engagement, to understand partners' priorities, what is important to them, and ensure that all partners' perspectives are included. Number 2, pre-implementation assessment, for proactive planning and assessment of multi-level context to inform implementation. Number 3, implementation and iterative adaptations guided by pre-implementation assessment and partner engagement while retaining fidelity to your intervention's core components. And number 4, intervention evaluation and sustainability, through measuring intervention outcomes, evaluating health equity and implementation strategies, and planning for sustainability. We will cover these 4 components over 4 separate modules. As I said earlier, this module will focus on multi-level partner engagement. Let's get started. So, what is partner engagement? With partner engagement, you want to identify and engage people who are important to your intervention. Who do we mean when we say partner? A partner is an individual or group of people who are responsible for or affected by health and healthcare-related decisions important to your intervention. And what do we mean by engagement? Engagement is a meaningful relationship between partners and the researchers that results in informed decision-making about the selection, design, conduct, and uses of the intervention. It's a bi-directional relationship where both parties benefit. There is an increasing need for research to engage partners if we want real-world impact. Partner engagement is like being in a dating relationship, where you need clear communication, understanding of each other's perspectives, sacrificing short-term interests for the common good, and have participatory decision-making between researchers, clinicians, operations, and, if appropriate, veterans and their caregivers. A focus group is not enough. You will need multiple types of partners at multiple points during the intervention to discuss multiple issues. Creating meaningful partnerships will help you enhance pragmatic research. It puts more ideas on the table. It will help you assess and understand strengths and weaknesses, assets, values, culture, and feelings on change. It will ensure that your intervention is relevant to partners' increased acceptability and usability for real-world purposes, and help build motivation by aligning your intervention with service and individual goals, values, and organizational connectedness. It will increase a sense of agency, ownership, buy-in, and support for the intervention from all partners by making them an integral part of its development, implementation, and evaluation. Partner engagement can enhance the quality and practicality of your intervention as well as promote sustained use. Partner engagement can promote mutual learning about what your partners really need or are interested in and what you bring to the table. It can increase the likelihood that your intervention will be adopted, sustained, and disseminated. Lastly, identifying partners and responding to their concerns makes it far more likely that your intervention will have both the community support it needs and the appropriate focus to be effective. Now, let's talk about potential partners. As you identify partners, you want to consider who will be affected on micro and macro levels by your intervention and target engagement efforts on these individuals or groups. Using a dissemination and implementation approach, consider using Concanon's 7 Ps framework for identifying groups of partners. These include patients and public, providers, purchasers, payers, product makers, policymakers, and principal investigators. With this list, identify who are your consumers, customers, users, adopters, influencers, and potential saboteurs. You may not need all these partners engaged for all interventions. Keep in mind that who is engaged can vary over time. Now let's talk about different strategies you can use to identify individual partners. As you identify your partners, be clear about who you're trying to engage as well as why. When identifying partners, it's important to think beyond the obvious. Beneficiaries and policymakers are easy to identify, but secondary partners are sometimes harder to recognize. Try to think of as many ways as possible that your intervention might bring benefits or problems to people not directly in its path. There are several ways to identify partners. Often, using more than one provides the best results. Brainstorm. Get together with people in your organization and others already involved in or informed about your intervention. Start calling out any categories and names that come to mind. After 10 or 15 minutes, stop and discuss each suggestion, perhaps identifying each as a primary, secondary, or key partner. Collect categories and names from informants in the community, especially members of a population or residents from your area of concern. Consult with organizations that either are or have been involved in similar interventions, or that work with your target population or area of concern. Using a snowball sampling approach by getting more names and ideas of potential partners from already identified partners. If appropriate, advertise through community meetings, newsletters, brochures, pamphlets, social media, targeted emails, announcements by leaders at meetings, and word of mouth. You may find people who consider themselves to be partners whom you haven't thought about. Once you've identified who your partners are, you need to characterize them. So let's talk about ways to do that. One way to characterize partners is by their relationship to the intervention. It's important to consider who to engage and to what degree, since this will vary between your partners. Primary partners are the people or groups directly affected, either positively or negatively, by your intervention. These are the beneficiaries or targets. Secondary partners are people or groups indirectly affected, either positively or negatively, by your intervention. They may be directly involved with or responsible for the beneficiaries or targets of your intervention, or those whose jobs or lives might be impacted by your intervention. Key partners are people or groups who can have a positive or negative effect on your intervention. They may also be people who are important within or to an agency engaged in your intervention. If they don't believe in what they're doing with your intervention, or they do it poorly, it is unlikely that your intervention will succeed. Key partners are those who can influence others and have an interest in the outcome of your intervention. Another way to characterize partners is by creating a partner map. Partner mapping is a way of determining who has the most positive or negative influence on your intervention, who is likely to be most affected by your intervention, and how you should work with partners with different levels of interest and influence. A partner map can help you understand the kind of influence each partner has on your intervention and its potential success. With this knowledge, you can decide how to manage partners, how to manage help of your supporters, how to involve those who could be helpful, and how to convert or neutralize those who may be saboteurs. Most methods of partner mapping divide partners into one of 4 groups, each occupying one space in a 4-space grid. Low to high influence over the intervention runs along a line from the bottom to the top of the grid, and low to high interest in the intervention runs along a line from left to right. Both influence and interest can be either positive or negative depending on perspectives of the partners. The lines describing them are continuous, meaning partners can have any degree of interest from none to as high as possible, including any of the points in between. Remember, these partners can vary over time, so this partner map may change depending upon where you are in the process of implementing your intervention. The least important partners have low power and low interest. Put forth the minimum effort in engaging these partners. Inform these partners with general information. Don't overload them with excessive communication. You should monitor them because they may become more important to the intervention at a later point in time, for example, if they change job roles. Partners with high power but low interest are those you want to keep satisfied or meet their needs. Strike a careful balance between keeping them informed but not overloading them with too much information. Partners with low power and high interest are those you want to show consideration to. You should keep these partners adequately informed and consult with them regarding their area of interest. Make sure they don't have any major issues with the intervention. These partners can often help with the details of the intervention. The key partners are those with high power and high interest. These partners need to be engaged regularly and managed closely, for they are the key players. This group will require the most effort to keep satisfied. After partners are identified, it's important to keep the user-centered design process in mind to garner their support and input for the intervention. User-centered design is an iterative design process framework that incorporates validation from the user every step of the research process. This closeness and frequent interaction helps you understand your user, what they want and don't want from your intervention, and how they're ultimately going to interact with each part of your intervention. You want to ensure you're filling a gap and producing something they need and will participate in. You want your intervention to be appropriate, feasible, acceptable, usable, and to fit within the context you're trying to implement it in. The first step is to plan your intervention through assessing the situation at hand. Before you start your intervention, you should have a deep understanding of the current situation and what you hope to accomplish with your intervention. Next, before you design any new feature, do some research on the users and understand their needs. Qualitative interviews, focus groups, and collaborative meetings are a good way to gather information on your users. During this phase, you want to identify your users, their problems, their needs, their current experiences, what they think of your intervention, what they want from your intervention, and how it could benefit them or fit into their workflow. Next, consider the design of your intervention. Once you have engaged your partners and done an assessment of their needs and workflow, you should investigate the design approach. Think about what works best for your users and design or modify your intervention accordingly. Once your design is ready, test it out with your users to make sure it works for them. If the users are not satisfied, you should make the recommended changes or adaptations based on their feedback. Lastly, continuously measure and assess how your intervention is going and make sure to make modifications based upon user input when something isn't working. Now let's talk about engagement strategies to use with partners. Here is a list of strategies to use with your partners. There are numerous ways to involve your partners in all phases of your intervention. How to engage your partners and to what degree depends on your intervention and end goals. While employing partner engagement strategies, make sure you have diverse and inclusive partnerships. Ensure underrepresented communities are involved. Social dynamics are not easy. There will be challenges ahead. Think about ways to navigate social dynamics before anything occurs so you're prepared. Remember, this needs to be a win-win for all people involved, so compromising is key. Now I'll tell you about one last helpful tool for engaging partners. The Stakeholder Engagement Selection tool is extremely useful when deciding how to engage partners. This tool provides suggestions for specific engagement strategies to use based upon your purpose, budget, what degree of interaction you want or need from your partners, your time constraints, and the staff that are available to work on your intervention. It can be accessed at the website listed on the bottom of this slide. In summary, partner engagement is important because it will help you implement your intervention successfully. Use a variety of ways to identify partners to ensure all key players are involved. A user-centered design is important and can enhance the uptake of your intervention. And lastly, be intentional about the methods you use to engage partners and use multiple strategies to accommodate various needs and styles. Thank you so much for your time.